My name is Amelia. I am 14 years old and I live in Peoria, Illinois. Before all of this happened, I not only didn't believe in God, I was angry at him. It's strange to say this now, after everything I've been through, but back then, every time someone mentioned faith, prayer, or Jesus, I felt a knot in my stomach. To me, it was all a big lie, a fairy tale for people too weak to face life as it really is. Hard, unfair, cruel. My mom tried to get me to go to church when I was little, but after my older brother died of cancer when I was 10, everything fell apart. She kept believing. I didn't. In fact, I asked myself every day, if God really exists, why did he let this happen? I was that girl who questioned everything. If a teacher talked about religion at school, I would raise my hand just to provoke them. If I saw someone praying before eating, I would roll my eyes. And when my friends talked about faith, I would make fun of them. But what no one knew is that, inside, I was broken. I felt alone, lost, like there was a part of me missing that nothing could fill. My bedroom was my hiding place. There, I would put on my headphones and tune out the world. I avoided thinking about God, but sometimes in the middle of the night, I would look up at the dark ceiling and whisper, "If you really exist, why don't you answer me?" The truth? I didn't just want answers. I wanted to be seen. I wanted to be heard. And it was in this confusion of feelings, between skepticism and pain, between anger and silence, that something happened. Something that would change my life, and perhaps yours too. If what I'm telling you makes sense to you, if in some way you've ever felt this emptiness, this silent pain, then maybe we need to continue this conversation together. There's a lot I still need to tell you. So if you want to follow me, leave a like and subscribe to the channel. That's enough. It was Friday night. I remember it like it was yesterday. The sky was overcast, with those gray clouds that seemed to hide something. My parents had gone to visit my grandmother in the hospital, and I had made different plans. My friends from school were going to a party at an older boy's house outside of town. It wasn't the kind of place my parents would let me go. But that day, I was tired of being the obedient daughter. I grabbed my backpack, said I was going to sleep at Julie's house, my best friend, and left. The truth? I just wanted to run away from the routine, from the sadness at home, from myself. In the car, the music was loud. Everyone was laughing, drinking, as if the world was going to end that night. And maybe, in a way, it did. The party venue was huge. Colorful lights, people dancing, a strong smell of alcohol. I felt out of place, but I pretended that everything was fine. I smiled for photos, danced with the others, laughed at jokes, but inside, everything was still empty. Around midnight, fights and shoving started. One guy tried to force Julie to kiss him. She screamed. I got in the middle, and suddenly, everything turned into chaos. Screaming, confusion, and then we decided to leave. We got into the car, me, Julie, and two other boys. One of them had been drinking. I knew it. But at that moment, it seemed better to run than to face what we had left behind. The road was wet. The streetlights seemed to move in slow motion. I remember looking out the window and thinking, if I died right now, would anyone miss me? It was the last thing I thought before impact. A truck rumbled through the intersection. It all happened so fast. A deafening sound, glass breaking, Julie's scream, and then silence. The kind of silence that doesn't belong in this world. I didn't feel any pain, just the slight sensation of being pulled away from my body, as if I were floating, as if I were watching the scene from outside. I saw the paramedics. I saw my body motionless. I saw my mother's despair when she arrived. But I couldn't scream. I couldn't go back. That night, I died. At least that's what the doctors said later. But what no one expected is that, in that death, I would experience something impossible to explain. I can't tell you exactly when everything went dark. After the accident, I blacked out. But it wasn't like sleeping. It was different. Time seemed to not exist. No cold, no heat, no sound. Just a void. Deep. Absolute. But the strangest thing? I was conscious. I knew I was there, wherever there was. I couldn't feel my body, but my thoughts were racing, lucid, intense. I could hear voices, distant, as if they were behind a very thick wall. Sometimes I would hear someone say my name. "Amelia, we're here. Please come back." It was my mother. I would recognize her voice anywhere. She was crying. And I wanted so much to respond. I wanted to shout, "I'm here, Mom. I can hear you." But I couldn't. No sound came out, no movement. Just the thought and the despair trapped inside me. I remember trying to remember what it was. A dream? A delusion? Or was it that I had died? That's when I started to notice something else. Even without seeing it, I felt that I was not alone. It was as if there was something, or someone, nearby. It wasn't scary, but it wasn't peaceful either. It was a dense presence, strong, as if the air had weight. And so began what I would later call the crossing. A light, far away, grew slowly. At first small, like a candle in the dark. Then, as if the sun itself were rising within that void. It was no ordinary light. It didn't hurt the eyes. In fact, it brought peace. I felt myself being pulled toward her, like something inside me wanted to go, and at the same time, was afraid. It was at that moment that I realized this was not a dream. It wasn't imagination. It was real. Much more real than anything I've ever experienced here. And when I finally stopped resisting, when I let the light take me, that's where it all started. The light grew. It wasn't an explosion. It wasn't something that scared me. It was as if peace itself was calling me. It was warmth without burning. It was welcoming without words. A feeling of being pulled by something that knew me, before I even existed. And then I saw it. A tunnel. Yes, just like in the movies, but much more real. It wasn't made of stone or brick or anything I could explain. It was as if it was made of time, from memories, of feeling. And he attracted me. Inside, the colors changed. It wasn't just shades of white. It had gold, silver, tones I've never seen on Earth, and sounds, but not like music. It was as if the colors had sound, and the sounds had soul. I know it sounds crazy, and honestly, I thought so too. I thought, this is it. I'm hallucinating. My brain is shutting down. This must be what scientists call a near-death experience. But then something happened that no scientist could explain. As I walked through the tunnel, I began to remember things. But they weren't just memories of my life. These were things I didn't even know were in storage. The smell of my grandmother's lap, my brother's laugh, the first time my mother put me to sleep singing softly. Such small moments, but they seemed huge there. And along with those memories, an overwhelming feeling. Regret. Not for the big mistakes, but for the little ones. The times I ignored someone who needed me. The harsh words I said just to hurt. The days I had the chance to love and chose to run away. It was as if that tunnel was showing me. Everything matters. Every choice. Every gesture. Every silence. And then, at the end of the tunnel, a silhouette. Someone was there. The light around him was so bright that I couldn't see his face right away. But I knew. Deep in my soul, I knew. It was him. The Jesus I had rejected, mocked, denied my entire life. And he was there, waiting for me. My heart stopped. Literally. But I felt no fear. There was no judgment. There was no condemnation. Just love. A love so overwhelming, so pure, so different from anything else here, that my tears began to fall. Tears that were not of pain, nor of shame. They were of reunion. And the most absurd thing? He called me by name. Not Amelia, as anyone would call her, but in a way that made my entire spirit vibrate, as if he had always known me, since before I was born. And in that instant, I knew. Nothing I believed was real. Nothing I denied was a lie. I was standing before the truth, and it was a person. When the light began to fade and that silhouette approached, everything inside me stopped. It was as if time had been suspended. There was no more pain, no more fear, only a love, so strong, so absolute that it made me forget who I was. And then he spoke. Amelia. Just that. But in that sound, there was everything. The voice was firm and soft at the same time. It didn't echo in my ears. It went through everything. Thought, emotion, soul. It was as if every cell in my being had been called. I fell to my knees, not because he told me to, but because the weight of his presence brought me to the ground. But it wasn't a crushing weight. It was a weight that healed, as if I had finally found the place where I always belonged. He did not accuse me. He did not remind me of my sins. He did not say a word about my unbelief. He just looked at me, and in that look, I saw everything. I saw every moment of my life, every choice, every tear, every day that I ignored him. And yet, he was still there, waiting, with his arms open wide. I remember asking with my eyes, "Why? Why do you love me if I denied you?" And it was as if he answered, without words, "Because I never stopped loving you." I cried, but it wasn't a cry of sadness. It was a cry of liberation. It was the kind of cry a soul makes when it finds what it has been searching for its whole life. He showed me scenes from my life, people I had hurt, people who needed me, moments I had wasted, but not as a punishment. It was like a lesson in love, a revelation of purpose. And at that moment, something marked me forever. He showed me the world, what is to come, what is being lost. And he said, "They need to know." If you've ever had a moment in your life where you felt something you couldn't explain, if you've ever dreamed it, if you've ever heard it, if you've ever felt that there was something bigger calling you, tell me here in the comments. I want to know. Not just out of curiosity, but because maybe your story is also part of all this, and you are not alone. After calling me by name, after looking into my eyes like no one else had ever looked into my eyes, he took me, not walking, not flying. It was as if we were simply elsewhere. Everything was light, but not a blinding light. It was a revealing light. There were no clocks there. There was no before or after. It was as if all time was happening at once. And it was in this eternal time that he began to show me everything. First, I saw my life as if I were watching a movie, but not just any movie, one that I felt. Every wrong choice, every cruel word, every moment of selfishness. I relived them not from my own perspective, but through the eyes of the people I had hurt. I felt their pain, their tears, their silent prayers for someone to just see. And then, he showed me the other side. The times I smiled at someone in the hallway. The times I held my mother's hand for no reason. A thank you, I said to a man at the supermarket. Such small details, but in that place, they were huge. Everything counted. Everything mattered. And then, the world. I saw the earth from above, but it wasn't like the pictures. It was beating, like a sick heart. I saw crowds searching for something. I saw people screaming for answers, for purpose. I saw war. I saw hunger. I saw children crying, mothers giving up, men lost. And he looked at me and said, "They forgot about me." The pain on his face was unbearable. It wasn't anger. It was sadness. A sadness so deep that it seemed to make the sky itself bleed. "They think they still have time," he said, "but time is running out." I asked, "Why are you showing me this? I'm just a girl." And he answered, "Because sometimes it's the little ones who carry the most urgent truths." He showed me churches that were packed, but empty inside. He showed me people with Bibles in their hands and hate in their hearts. But he also showed me invisible people who truly loved in silence, without a stage. And he said, "I do not look at what the eyes see. I look at what only love can reveal." Then, one last revelation. I saw a crowd, countless, silent, waiting. And then I heard the phrase I will never forget. "I'm coming back, sooner than they think." In that moment, I knew the world needed to know. This was not a metaphor. This was not a symbolic vision. This was real, and I had been chosen to tell it. After showing me everything, my life, the world, the future, he fell silent. But it wasn't an empty silence. It was the kind of silence that speaks, that cuts through, that changes everything. I knew what was coming. I didn't want to go back. There, in that place outside of time, where love was a living presence, I finally felt whole. It was as if all the broken pieces inside me had been glued together one by one, gracefully. I didn't want to miss this. I didn't want to go back to the pain, the noise, the doubts, and the weight of life. But he looked at me tenderly and said, "You're not done yet." My soul resisted. I cried. I cried silently. But I'm not strong enough. I'm just a broken girl who didn't even know if she wanted to live. And then he said something that still echoes within me to this day. "That's exactly why you're going." He touched my face. And with that simple gesture, everything became clear. I didn't need to be perfect. I didn't need to have all the answers. I just needed to tell what I saw, tell what I lived, show the world that there is more to life than meets the eye. And in that instant, everything began to fade away. The light began to fade like the end of a sunset. The sound grew more distant. The peace turned to heaviness, and my consciousness was being pulled back. I remember hearing the sound of machines, beeps, muffled screams, and pain, not physical, but emotional. It was like returning to a body that no longer belonged to me. I felt a weight on my chest, as if my heart had been restarted. And then, a sharp intake of breath. My eyes flew open. The white light of the hospital blinded me for a moment. "She's waking up!" someone shouted. My mother burst into tears. The doctor didn't know what to say. My father trembled as he held my hand. But me? I just looked at the ceiling and smiled. I had come back. Not for me, but for something bigger. And within me, an unshakable certainty. Nothing would ever be the same again. When I opened my eyes, everything seemed slow, as if time was afraid to move forward. The hospital light blinded me, but it didn't matter. Because there, amidst the noise of the machines, the smell of alcohol, and the wide eyes of the doctors, I was back. I went back. And the first thing I saw was my mother's face, red, swollen from crying, but still, beautiful. She was holding my hand with a desperate grip, as if she was afraid I would slip away again. My father stood behind her, frozen. His eyes said everything he couldn't say with words. They cried, but I smiled. And it wasn't because I didn't understand what had happened. It was precisely because I did understand. I had seen it, touched it, felt it. And now, I knew. A nurse ran to get the doctors. Their hurried footsteps echoed in the hallway like drums. People came in, lights were turned on, questions began. But I couldn't answer anything. I didn't need to. My eyes said it all. In that bed, with tubes still attached to me, scars on my face and pain in my body, I felt peace. A peace that didn't come from medication or rest. It was something from within. Something from another world. The doctors couldn't explain it. I was in a coma for almost 2 weeks. The accident had been serious. The prediction was that if I woke up, I would have serious consequences. But there I was, lucid, full, serene, and with a mission. In the following days, I recovered my movement, speech, and strength. But I didn't tell what I experienced right away. Not out of fear, but because it wasn't easy to translate into words something so eternal. Until one night, I asked to be alone. I closed my eyes and whispered, "Jesus, I'm here." And then I felt it. Again. That presence. That love. As if he were saying, "Now it's up to you." The first person I told was Julie. She had survived too, but she was carrying guilt. When I started telling her everything, the tunnel, the encounter, the revelations, she cried, but not out of sadness. She cried because for the first time, she believed. Then I told my parents. It was difficult. They didn't know if it was delirium or imagination, but they saw it in my eyes. They saw the change in me. And they knew that I wasn't the same anymore. The skeptical, angry, empty Amelia had died in that accident. Amelia, who returned with a mission. And even though I didn't understand everything yet, I knew. The next stage of my life wouldn't be about me. It would be about him and what he asked me to do. He was discharged from the hospital earlier than expected. The doctors still looked at me as if they were witnessing a miracle. And they were, but not just physical. The real miracle was in the invisible. I came home different. Something in me had turned inside out, as if the old Amelia had remained on the asphalt of those wet streets of Peoria, and a new one had been born there, in that hospital bed, with eyes washed by something that was not of this world, and the change was immediate. I stopped listening to the same songs. They no longer fulfilled me. Empty words, rhythms that used to make me escape, now bothered me. I exchanged them for praises, for melodies that connected me with that presence that I still felt close to me. Every day. I left social media for a while. You needed to hear me, clean myself, start me over. I started waking up earlier just to be in silence and talk to God. It wasn't a memorized prayer. It was as if He was right there, sitting on the edge of my bed, listening to me like a father listens to a hurting daughter. I started reading the Bible, and it wasn't like reading any other book. It was as if the words jumped off the pages and spoke directly to me. I cried as I read it. I repented. I forgave myself. I found myself. I distanced myself from people, some by choice. Others did so on their own. When they realized I wasn't the same anymore, that I didn't want the same parties, the same jokes, the same vices, they left. At first, it hurt. I felt alone. But God always kept me company. At school, the reaction was immediate. Some said I was crazy, that it was just trauma, that my brain had made it all up. Others listened to me in silence. Some cried, and a few started to come closer, to ask questions, to search for me too. It wasn't easy. There was a day when I wanted to give up. I hid in the bathroom to cry. I asked, "Why did you choose me? I'm not good at this." But He answered, always with peace, always with purpose. And little by little, the pain I had carried since childhood, from the loss of my brother, from the empty nights, from God's silence, was transformed into strength, as if He had taken each broken piece and used it to rebuild me. Stronger, more alive. Today, I see everything with different eyes. Life has a purpose. Pain has a purpose. Even silence has a purpose. Because God gave me a new life, and I'm not going to waste this second chance. For days, I kept everything inside me. Not because I was afraid, but because I needed to understand. It was like carrying an immense light inside my chest, and at the same time, feeling that the world was still too blind to see it. But something inside me was growing, an urgency, as if that voice that had called my name still echoed within me. They need to know. I didn't know where to begin. I was just a 14-year-old girl from Peoria, Illinois. I wasn't a pastor or a theologian or an influencer, but I had something that no one could take away from me, my life. And whoever experiences something so real can no longer remain silent. It was one afternoon after school that I plucked up the courage. I grabbed my cell phone, went into my room, closed the door, and pressed record. "Hi, my name is Amelia, and I died, but God brought me back. And what He showed me changed everything." It was a 12-minute recording, no script, just the truth. I told about the accident, the tunnel, the encounter with Jesus, the revelations. I told it with my soul, with my heart. I cried. I trembled. But I didn't black out. I posted the video without thinking much. I didn't even know if anyone would see it. The next morning, it had over 90,000 views. My phone was blowing up with notifications. People from all over the country were commenting, sharing, crying along. People were saying, "This happened to me too." I needed to hear this. Now I believe it. That's when I understood. My mission was not to convince. It wastify. And I started recording more. Short videos, messages, prayers. I started answering questions, telling what Jesus told me about the time we are living in. I started talking about love, repentance, forgiveness. And each new video was like planting a seed. There were people who laughed, who said I was crazy. This was just a girl seeking attention. But the real impact was behind the scenes. Private messages from people saying they would give up on life that night. until they heard my video. I understood then that it wasn't about me. It was about what he wanted me to say, and I will keep saying it, with the voice I have, with the age I have, with the heart that he restored. Because when you see what I saw, when you hear what I heard, when you feel what I felt, staying silent is no longer an option. What started as a simple video turned into a storm. In the early days, it was all love. People were thankful, crying, reconnecting with God. But then, others came. Those who don't understand, those who don't accept, those who are afraid of what they can't control. This is a scam. Girl making up a story to gain followers. Hallucination caused by brain trauma. Premature fanaticism. Videos of my response began to appear. People reacted to my stories with sarcasm. Psychologists said I was delusional. Skeptics dismantled every word as if I were a fraud. Even pastors, yes, some religious ones, said I was mistaken, that this is not from God. At first, it hurt. A lot. I cried for nights. I wondered if I had done something wrong, if I was really ready for this. I felt small, fragile, crushed by the weight of a truth that the world didn't want to hear. But then, I remembered him. From the look in Jesus' eyes, from the touch on my face, from the words he said, they need to know. And I realized, persecution always comes after the truth. I started reading the Gospels again, and there it was. He was rejected too, accused, mocked, but he never backed down, never kept quiet, because his love was greater than fear. And if he went through that, why shouldn't I? At school, I became the girl in the coma. People who used to hug me now looked away. Teachers asked me to respect the limits of science. Even my old best friend texted me, "You're not the same anymore," and that's scary. Yes, I changed, and I will keep changing, because what I saw cannot be unseen. What I felt cannot be erased. And even with all the attacks, something keeps me going. The silent comments, the discreet messages from those who don't want to expose themselves but write, "Please pray for me, I'm searching too," or "You made me believe again." They are proof that the seed is germinating, that even in the middle of the mud, there is life being born. Today, I understand that I was not called to please, I was called to warn, and if that costs me applause, friendships, or comfort, that's okay, because the price he paid for me was much greater. You can call me a liar, but the truth, I carry it in my chest, and no one can take that away from me. The moment I knew would come has arrived. The moment to say everything. No filters, no fear, no beating around the bush, because what was shown to me, what was told to me, wasn't just for me. It wasn't a personal secret, a private experience. It was a calling, a warning, an urgent warning. He's coming back. And no, I'm not talking about a metaphor, a beautiful spiritual idea to comfort insecure hearts. I'm talking about something real, visible, immediate, a literal return, a separation between what is true and what is a facade. During the experience, Jesus showed me the state of the world, the wars that are coming, the catastrophes, the divisions, but also the opportunity, the last chance, the chance to choose which side you want to be on. I saw time running out. I saw people repenting too late. I saw confused faces looking up to the sky, hoping to understand what was happening, but it was too late. I saw churches empty inside, even though they were full on the outside. I saw people who knew the Bible by heart, but never knew the heart of God. And I saw others, the invisible, the humble, those who had never stepped onto a stage, being received with celebration in heaven. His voice echoes in me to this day. Tell them that I am coming back, and that now is the time to choose. So this is my last message here. I don't know what will come next. Maybe my story will be lost among so many voices. Maybe they will try to erase it, silence it, distort it. But if you've come this far, know this. It wasn't by chance. None of this was by chance. You have been called, a call to awaken, to turn to Him, to stop playing at religion and start living a real, living, transforming faith. Don't wait for the right moment. Don't wait to see to believe. Don't wait for the world to fall apart to start searching. He's coming back. And there is no more time for delays. I am not a prophet. I am not a saint. I am not perfect. But I am someone who saw, who heard, who was called, and who decided to obey. The choice now is yours. Will you listen? Are you going to prepare? Or will you wait until it's too late? If you've come this far, it's because something inside you felt it. He felt the presence. He felt the urgency. He felt the voice of God speaking to his heart. If this happened to you, subscribe to the channel now, not to follow content, but to walk together. Because here, each video is an invitation to get closer to him. If you were touched, comment below, "I heard the voice of God." Don't underestimate the power of this phrase. It can reach someone who is about to give up. And if you felt that this message really spoke to you, leave your like. It's not just a button. It's a sign that there are still hearts open, attentive, awake. And now, watch the next video that appears on the screen, because God still has more to show you.